Do the Denver Broncos have a point to prove against the Green Bay Packers this weekend? Does Nathan MacKinnon's historic night potentially change his perception and standing as an all-time great Colorado Avalanche? And what does it mean for the Burgundy and Blues' chances to end this season with a fourth Stanley Cup trophy? All things to come on today's rundown. Thank you so much for joining us. While you're here, like and subscribe to our Denver Sports 1043 The Fan YouTube channel. You can find us at Denver Sports 1043 on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. If you're watching us, as many of you do, on X or on Facebook, we love you. We appreciate you. Feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications so that you never miss a moment with us. Tons to get into today on a Football Friday, and I want to welcome in friend of the program, Justin Adams from CBS4. Justin, back-to-back weeks now with an appearance here on the show. Excited to have you as one of the newer members on our Denver Sports 1043 The Fan team. How you doing, man?
Doing well, Richie. How about yourself, my brother?
I am doing well. I'm excited, Justin. Yeah. Truthfully, I'm excited about for sure what's going on the hardwood and on the ice with our NBA and NHL teams. But I'm really excited, Justin, for this particular weekend, for this Broncos-Packers game, because I think it has such a magnifying potential in so many different ways. One, I think that this measures up. People are calling it a potential Super Bowl 60 preview, but I think it serves as a measuring stick, frankly, for both squads, as they've both progressed fairly well through the better part, the last 3 quarters or so of this NFL season. But I still wonder whether or not each of them in their own respects have a little bit of a point to prove. Right? Because the Broncos are in possession of the number 1 seed in the AFC. They secured that massive tiebreaker over New England with their victory over the Raiders. And I still think that despite the fact that they're riding a 10-game win streak and that their 2 losses have come in the first 3 weeks of the season with no time left on the clock, one of which was via a leverage penalty that almost never gets called in the NFL, it still feels like this Broncos, and maybe specifically this Broncos offense, is doubted to the degree, locally and nationally, that raises question about whether or not Denver can, even with the number 1 seed, find their way to Santa Clara. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is fair, because a lot of people look at what the Packers have offensively and see the explosive plays. And the Broncos fans haven't seen that, especially last week. Excuse me, coming over a little bit of a cold. But one of the things to look at, too, is the Broncos were able to possess the ball a lot against the Raiders. They were able to do what they needed to do. Now, the only thing that I didn't like was that they had to throw the ball 38 times. I get it in the offense. I get it. It's all about possessing it. It's pretty much just another form of running in many respects. But you want to see some of the explosive plays, and that's what the Green Bay Packers will bring this week. So it'll be very interesting to see how this game will go.
It will, because, again, the dance that the Denver Broncos and the New England Patriots are doing at the top of the AFC, it can't be understated, as I mentioned just before here, in my opinion, how important it is for the Denver Broncos, with their ultimate goal being reaching and hopefully winning the Super Bowl, to have the road to the Super Bowl go through the Mile High City with the home field advantage that Denver has, both from a crowd standpoint, as we've had Tony Romo and Jim Nantz, Sean Payton has echoed it, as have other national commenters talk about the fact that the advantage that the Broncos have at home, given the noise factor in the environment that they play in, combined with the altitude, combined with the fact that their defense, which is playing at a championship caliber level for the majority of this season, can only get further amplified in that environment. Plus, it settles things down on an offensive perspective. I don't think it can be understated how important that is. And given the fact that New England's schedule, they play the Buffalo Bills in New England, then they play the Ravens, and then they finish off the season on a relatively soft note. Whereas the Broncos have a top 3 seed in the NFC this weekend. They turn around and face an AFC playoff team in the Jacksonville Jaguars the next weekend. Then they've got to play ho on Christmas Day against the Kansas City Chiefs, who may be fighting for their postseason lives, if not already eliminated by then. But regardless, I don't see a world where that Kansas City game, from Kansas City's perspective, becomes quote unquote meaningless, and you're not going to get their best shot. And then you have a game at the end of the season against the Los Angeles Chargers that legitimately, Justin, may be for the AFC West, given the fact that the Broncos have a 2-game lead over LA that's really a 1-game lead, because LA owns the tiebreaker at this current moment. Justin, we got an update on Packers running back Josh Jacobs earlier today, who missed practice on Wednesday, missed practice on Thursday, but returned to practice in a limited capacity today. And Packers head coach Matt LaFleur said that Josh Jacobs was feeling pretty good. He was in good spirits. He was excited to get out there and get moving around. Josh Jacobs himself commented on his status earlier in the week and left things kind of ambiguous and vague. But Josh Jacobs, Justin, has been an absolute Bronco killer.
Yes.
For the majority of his career. He has never been a part of a loss to the Denver Broncos, specifically most of his time being with the Las Vegas Raiders. But it seems like regardless of the status of the team dynamic, whether the Raiders are a functional team, a bad team, a scrappy team, or a team that's just completely out of the picture from the jump, the way they have been most of this season, Josh Jacobs seems to get his against the Denver Broncos. So when you're looking at him returning to practice on an all-important Friday ahead of this Sunday game in the 2 o'clock window, 2:25 Mountain Time, how critical do you think Josh Jacobs' performance, if you were to just put him in a bubble, will be to the overall success for the Green Bay Packers on Sunday?
It'll be the difference between if the Broncos can be able to rush. And what I mean by rush is and send that extra blitzer, which they like to do. Because if you can't stop the run, you can't send that extra guy to be able to get at Jordan Love. The Broncos want to do that on 3rd down and long. And you won't be able to have 3rd down and long if you keep giving up the runs. And it's something that we have seen in the last couple of weeks. If there's one criticism of the Broncos defense is they have allowed guys to be able to run the football a little bit, especially the game against Washington. So they did a pretty good job following up last week up against the Raiders, doing a great job against Jency. But the thing about it will be you have to make sure that you stop Josh Jacobs and make Jordan Love have to beat you with his arm. If the Packers come into this game, because they're well balanced, and they come into this game and able to run and throw the football, it will be a long day for the defense. But if you could go and take that away, at least make them one-dimensional one way or the other, it gives you a tremendous chance to be able to go and win this game. I think the biggest factor in order to stop the run would be DJ Jones actually coming back from his ankle injury. I think that's the thing that's going to really define this game by having another guy. Obviously, we know we have Roach, we have Zach Allen, and the rest of the guys that are there to stop the run. But adding another big body, an able body that can move around, make things happen, and also get into the backfield, having DJ Jones is going to help out immensely and make it very easy for your linebackers to be able to clean up the mess too. So if you could do that and don't have to go and have, 7 guys in a box, please, not 8 guys in the box, then you make it a lot easier to have those 3rd down and long opportunities where you can go and get after the quarterback.
I want to ask you, Justin, about the singular most important key to the game for each side of the ball, but I want to do it in 2 different ways. So let's focus on the offensive side of the ball specifically, right? Because that has been the unit, Justin, I think it's fair to say, that has really kind of been the limiting factor in how the Broncos perform on a week-to-week basis throughout this season. If Sean Payton and Bo Nix in the offense can keep things humming to a respectable enough degree to provide complementary football to the defense that for the majority of the 3 months or so that we are into this season has played at a very high level, the Broncos are going to win more of those games than not. And that's how the season has played out. But there have been times during this 10-game win streak even, Justin, where the Broncos offense has really towed that line and forced the defense to shoulder the majority of that burden. So when we're looking at the Denver Broncos offense, going up against a Green Bay Packers defense that features Micah Parsons and features a pretty stout front 4 and front 7, in order for the Broncos to win this game on Sunday, blank has to rise to the occasion to make it happen. Who would you fill that blank with?
Troy Franklin. I'll say it right now. Troy Franklin has to rise up to the occasion. And the reason why is because Pat Bryant most likely will be out with a hamstring injury. So Troy Franklin has to be the guy to make the tough catches. Everybody can make a catch when you're wide open. I need Troy Franklin to make 2 or 3 extremely tough catches that we normally don't see him make. He has to be the guy to make the plays in this game, especially on third down and long. You already know what's going to happen with Courtland Sutton. You have bracket coverage on him because generally you do so with a bigger wide receiver. You don't want Courtland Sutton to beat you. And you say, okay, well then who else on this roster can be able to go and beat us? It has to be Troy Franklin to be able to do so. Not bobble the ball, not miss the ball on the sideline, to be able to make those tough catches, get it to the end zone once or twice, and make things happen for this offense. I also think it's going to be on the Broncos offense to figure out a way how to get Marvin Mims into the game too. He's the guy who could really make some plays. I mean, I'll go back against the Giants. One of the biggest plays in that game was a tough catch that he made on third down and long. Why are we not getting him into the offense even more? Especially when you down one wide receiver, most likely, you got to make sure that you go and get it into the hands of your playmakers. I don't care if it's a bubble screen. I don't care if it's going deep. But figuring out a way how to get the ball into his hands and let your playmakers make plays is extremely important. So, yes, Troy Franklin, you got to make some plays, especially on third down. And definitely let's get the ball into the hands of Marvin Mims and let your guys cook out there on the field.
Well, on one hand, to your point, Justin, Troy Franklin has been one of the more heavily targeted wide receivers in this offense. And it's kind of a unique disparity because Troy Franklin, as a member of the Denver Broncos this season, has drawn more targets from Bo Nix than Courtland Sutton. But Courtland Sutton has outproduced him in terms of yardage and receptions on those fewer targets. So an interesting kind of disparity there. And then on the subject of Marvin Mims, who was kind of thrust into the conversation by many of us saying, hey, this is your all-pro special teamer who was going into the season. Everybody had kind of penciled him in as the incumbent wide receiver 2 opposite Courtland Sutton, and we would see how Troy Franklin, and others, including Pat Bryant, would kind of rise to that occasion, maybe even Evan Ingram. But it really just hasn't manifested itself that way. He's on pace to have right around, if not slightly under, the same type of productive season that he had last year, which I don't think is what many of us had in the cards. And Sean Payton put it out there into the media ecosphere this week of we as an offense, as a staff, have to find more ways to get him involved. So if that does happen, Justin, to your point, it will be because of a concerted effort from the head coach and the offensive mastermind.
Yeah.
Switching to the defensive side of the ball, I had a conversation with our senior Broncos writer, Andrew Mason, earlier today on one of our other programs where I pointed out that the Denver Broncos defense utilizes man coverage virtually 60% of the time that they're on the field, which is top marks in the NFL. They pace the National Football League in terms of volume of mass coverage usage. Conversely, Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love as a quarterback is, I believe, tied at the top of the league, perhaps with Drake May, if he doesn't own it outright, in EPA per play against man coverage. There is no better statistical quarterback in the NFL right now against man coverage than Jordan Love. And they do that without a wide receiver, Justin, who's on pace to have 1,000 yards. Right. It's kind of like this dynamic that we saw in Buffalo last season where Josh Allen is having this superhuman type of productive season, but there's no hot route for it to go to. It could be Keon Coleman. It could be Khalil Shakir. It could be Dalton Kincaid or Dawson Knox. It could be any multitude of guys that they're funneling in and out of those rooms. Green Bay's built kind of similarly in that regard. There isn't really a Courtland Sutton for the Green Bay Packers, and yet they are not afraid to throw at an opposing team's cornerback one. They are not afraid to utilize one-on-one coverage and leave their guys out in space to go ahead and make a play. And I asked Mace whether or not he thought that would create any kind of difference in terms of a schematic approach for Vance Joseph. Because what you have there is like an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. It's strength on strength. The Broncos run man defense more than any team in the NFL, and they're really damn good at it. And the Packers do better than anybody else against that specific style of defense that the Broncos play. And I think Vance Joseph, over the course of his tenure here in his second stint with the Broncos, has done a good job of disguising and mixing things up and really kind of getting at you in different ways. So what would you say the single most important key to victory for this Broncos defense against Jordan Love and the Packers offense will be if they want to walk away with a win on Sunday?
Kill the yak. Kill the yak. You can't have a lot of yards after catch. That's what killed the Chicago Bears last week. That's what killed the Detroit Lions. You cannot have that. And then you also have to believe that our guys are actually the best DBs in the league. Our guys are better than what the Bears have. Our guys are better than what the Lions have when the Packers were able to win those last couple of weeks, right? So you got to believe that from the get-go. Also, on the defensive line, if I told you that Jonathan Cooper hasn't had a sack in 3 weeks, would you believe me? Because he's been sitting at 7.5 sacks for a while. It's time for him to join the party again. He started off the year very strong, had a half a sack against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now it's time for him to get back into the mix by getting some sacks too, because yes, everybody is going to be focused on Nick Bonino. Nick Bonino is going to have the chip. He's going to have everybody who's focused on him. Obviously, again, with Zach Allen in the middle, you know that he's going to push the pocket. But I would love from the other side to be able to have Jonathan Cooper be able to add to that sack total and stop this sackless streak that he had for a while. So that'll be one thing that'll be very important to be able to have. Also, when you do rush, because yes, Vance Joseph loves to sit in the blitz. But also, when you look at the film, he usually has a guy fall back. Sometimes it's Bonito, sometimes it's Cooper, who falls back to where your sight adjustment or your read option would generally be. Right. So it just makes you hold that ball for the extra second. So you just got to make sure that when the ball is being held for that extra beat, and Jordan Love is thinking about where to put the football in. Oh, I can't put it to my hot route here. You just got to make sure that you get home. I know you like the cage rush. A cage rush is extremely important because it literally feels like everybody is starting to come and just get all on you all at once. But it's important that you finally go and make a play once you do that and once you do rush the quarterback. And last but not least, I'll say this. We talked about this last week, and I mentioned how the Broncos, they don't have a lot of turnovers. This is a game where you got to go force a couple of turnovers. They only have 3 games this year where they have 2 turnovers. In the game, 3 games that they have 2 turnovers. It's time for the Broncos to go and get a couple of interceptions, get a couple of fumble recoveries, just make it a short field for the Broncos offense to be able to go and win this game.
Yep, that is one of the bigger identity switches, I think, for this Broncos defense year over year, as we are coming off of a defense led by Vance Joseph that early in Sean Payton's tenure here with the Broncos was an absolute turnover-forcing machine. Yeah. Almost at an impossible to replicate pace were they creating turnovers on a week-to-week basis. And now it has seemed that the defense's identity has shifted to just a suffocating, blitzing, pass-rushing, formidable front that just makes opposing quarterbacks not have the opportunity, even at a higher tier level, to process fast enough to get the ball out, which is what made the Washington Commanders game so surprising, is that a backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota was able to get the ball out of his hands right around that 2-second mark and neutralize some of that weaponry that Vance Joseph likes to deploy as one of the more pressure-oriented defensive coordinators around the league. I liked your answer, Justin, of Troy Franklin, because, again, I think he's somebody that we've been circling for a number of weeks, especially coming off of the offseason that he had, where it really started to look around when we're at training camp and go, oh, this guy could be out for a statement type of season. Because you saw in his rookie campaign the tantalizing moments that were there, the deep connections that were just off by a half a step or a fingertip here or whatever, the nose of a football there. And going into the 2025 season, we said, okay, that's going to change now. These guys are more on the same page. This guy could quickly become the wide receiver 2 and give you a glimpse at what your future wide receiver 1 may look like. Because remember, a lot of this was before the Courtland Sutton extension ever happened. But if I was to pick one offensive player that had to rise to the occasion in order to come away with a victory on Sunday, and frankly, to create a repeatable pattern throughout the final month of this season into the postseason, it's RJ Harvey for me, Justin. Yeah. RJ Harvey stepping into the pretty significant shoes of J.K. Dobbins, who, when healthy throughout the entirety of his career, but specifically with this season with the Broncos, was a top 5 rusher in the National Football League and created a top 5, top 10 rushing offense for the Denver Broncos, giving Bo Nix and Sean Payton that complementary aspect to really make them well-rounded and whole enough to not have to do some of the things they did last year, which is revert back to Bo Nix's legs to give you any kind of semblance of production on the ground and or throwing the ball 35 to 40 times a game. he has not looked consistently enough like he is ready to do that in this moment. And fair or not, that's the position that he and the Broncos are in. But it happened in its best iteration thus far against the Las Vegas Raiders. And you saw drives of 12, 15, 17, 19 plays sustained by this Broncos offense, which creates such a suffocating approach from a defensive perspective to have to stay out there for that long and then walk away, even if you're coming away in some of those cases like they did with field goals. The fact that you're giving your defense that much of a break, taking so much time off of the clock, which helps your defense and gives your offense the ability to keep their playbook as open as possible by creating second and third and manageable situations. If RJ Harvey can be that guy for the Denver Broncos, this team can make the number 1 seed, can put themselves 2 home playoff games away from a Super Bowl. And if he can do that consistently, Justin, with the defense that this Broncos team is playing right now and the fact that Bo Nix is continuing to progress as a sophomore quarterback, this is a team that can win a Super Bowl if all of those stars align.
Yeah, you know what it does too, especially when you talk about the defense? It does this. Now you're up 7-0, like you were against the Raiders last week. I know the Raiders came back down and scored, but you think about the long-term aspects of what happened when an offense is now out of whack because your offense is on the field for so long. Well, now the quarterback's not hitting the players that he wants to because, well, he's not in rhythm like he could be. And oh, by the way, now you look at their playbook and they're like, man, wait a minute. We're down by 2 possessions, 3 scores. Now we have to go in, get rid of whatever we wanted to do in our game plan, and now we have to go and fight back as fast as we can by throwing the football, which is exactly what the Broncos want you to do. Why? Because we have 2 of some of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And so now they're able to go and get after you. Now they're able to send all these blitzes and everything your way. You get away from running the football. You get away from controlling the clock. And now you're playing on your back leg. So when the offense is able to stay on the field as long, yes, you want the explosion plays. We all do, right? But when you're able to possess the ball for so long, especially where you're going to play at elevation, man, you're just beating down the opposing defense so much that by the time it gets to the fourth quarter, all those game tackles where you may stop a guy for 2 yards, or you may stop a guy for 3 yards, those turn into 8-yard gains. Those turn into 12-yard gains. Those turn into guys who are bending over at the waist rather than their hands on their waist, and they're extremely tired up front, and allows your big guys up front to be able to punish the defensive line. So it's extremely important to be able to have your running back be able to do what he could do. And I love the way that he just played last week. I thought Harvey had a very, very good game. And I also thought Harvey did something else that was great. He was able to go and catch the ball out the backfield. Like he was able to go and be the check down and make things happen. I thought his best play, honestly, was in the first drive on 3rd down and 2. Let's go and break a couple of tackles.
Yes, converting on that first drive was massive. It set a tone for the rest of the game.
Exactly. We're right there together. It set the tone for the physicality that this team was going to play with. And if there was one thing that before the Raiders game that we didn't say together was, hey, RJ Harvey's a physical running back, right? But we was able to lay his shoulder, break a tackle, they get to the next couple of yards, and then not go outside to run the football, but say, hey, I'm going to run in between the tackles. If it's 2 yards, it's 2 yards. If it's 3 yards, it's 3 yards. But continue to keep this team ahead of the sticks, then it just helps out your offense throughout the rest of the game. So I look forward for him to do the same this week.
And on the defensive side of the ball, Justin, every time we watch these games, I'm always fascinated about the dance that takes place, the yin and the yang that exists between a defense's front 4 and front 7, specifically if you want to zero in on the pass rush, and then the back end players in the secondary, right? Because it becomes kind of a chicken or an egg situation. Like when you have a team like the Broncos that is as prolific as they are in the sack category this season, you kind of weigh this balance of, okay, is that just because they've got horses in the stable coming off the edge that are just suffocating opposing offensive lines and quarterbacks? Or how many of those are predicated on the fact that you have a reigning defensive player of the year, you have Talanoa Hufanga and Brandon Jones and Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan and Jahdae Barron and this vaunted secondary that is so locked down in coverage that the pass rushers and the linebackers have more of an opportunity time-wise to get home and find the quarterback than they do against other defenses. And it's kind of this like tug of war back and forth about which one is more important. I think some of it is matchup specific, when the end result ultimately will hopefully continue to be the same. In this specific matchup against the Green Bay Packers, Justin, from my perspective, I think it's going to be critically important for the Broncos secondary, those players I just mentioned, from Patrick Surtain to Riley Moss to Hufanga and Brandon Jones and Jaquan and Jahdae Barron, to win their one-on-one matchups. This is going to be that title fight individually on the outsides, where the Green Bay Packers with Christian Watson and Jalen Reed and et cetera are going to step up to that line of scrimmage and say, I'm better than you, and I'm going to show you why. And the Broncos need to win those individual battles, because Green Bay's offense is designed to beat the exact same thing that the Broncos have excelled at. And the only way to wreck that, in my opinion, is for them to win those matchups long enough to allow the Nick Bonitos, the Jonathan Coopers, the Zach Allens, the DJ Joneses, et cetera, to get in Jordan Love's face and disrupt that. Because the pass rush can be fantastic, but because the Green Bay Packers offense is built around man coverage, beating option routes and things of that nature, that would just be feeding into their hand. They are already prepared to win one-on-ones in man coverage, get the ball out of their hands quickly, and move the ball down the field in chunk play fashion. So if the two guys on the outside, Patrick Surtain and Riley Moss, can hold things down long enough, and you don't have any kind of major zone blitz or zone coverage holes in the middle of the field, that is what would allow Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, and company to really start to wreck a game plan.
Yeah, and we also missed one other thing that's really important too. It's the fans. The fans and the crowd noise are so important in this game, because you want to have that extra split second to allow your guys off the edge to be able to get after the quarterback. Like that's what crowd noise does. That's why it's so important for the Broncos to be able to go and have home field advantage. It's because of the loud crowd noise, and now they're able to go and get off the ball. And now the tackles are just a split second late, and they're getting right after Jordan Love. And now, rather than him looking over his reads, he's now looking down at the rush. He's trying to move around the pocket rather than knowing where he's going to go with the football. All that helps out. And oh, by the way, if you could be able to hold on the back end and be able to cover that extra second longer, that's going to help the guys up front be able to go and get after the quarterback, or have that errant pass when we finally get that turnover that we were just talking about too, right? So everything works all together. Yes, it's the guys on the field, but it's important for the fans in this game to make as much noise as possible. You are very, very important to the success of the Broncos in this one.
I want to shift gears to the Colorado Avalanche, which means it's time to hit the turn. Presented by The Birdie Bar, Louisville's premier indoor golf bar and restaurant. Check them out online or on Instagram at thebirdie.bar. Justin, we witnessed a pretty significant historic moment in the annals of the Colorado Avalanche last night in a drubbing of the back-to-back Stanley Cup champ Florida Panthers, which ended in a 6-2 rout. But in the process, Nathan MacKinnon passes Joe Sakic for the most goals in Avalanche team history with 392. Briefly, before I get into the meat and potatoes of it, what have you made of Nathan MacKinnon's significant and ferocious start to this 2025 campaign for the Avs?
It's almost expected by now, isn't it? It's almost Jokic-like. Let me put it this way. It is Jokic-like, because this is what he does. He scores goals. He has the most points in the NHL. He's ridiculous the way that he plays, and he has so much talent around him, and he still is the player that rises to the top, even on the best team in the NHL. He's been a constant scorer, even in the bad times. And remember, he was here during the really, really bad times, and he was a guy.
That's how they acquired him.
Yep, that's it. And you know what? It's the way that this team is going to win. You have to have your superstars be able to show up, and he's been able to do so all season long. So I'm not surprised by what I'm seeing from Nathan MacKinnon. He's still fast. He's still quick. And when you look at his mentor and his friend being a Sidney Crosby and what he has continued to do with the Pittsburgh Penguins, it's almost an expectation from what we've seen from what he has done with the Penguin to what Nathan MacKinnon is doing with the Avalanche.
It is. There is an expectation. and a bar that continues to kind of raise and elevate year after year. And you mentioned Nikola Jokic, and that's a conversation that we have with him as well. Every time we think that we've seen a potential ceiling from Nikola Jokic from an efficiency standpoint, from his flexibility and versatility within the offense, and how he can elevate a roster around him as the sun that everyone orbits around, he seems to beat that mark the following season, as has been the case in each of his MVP seasons that he has stacked, even in the ones where he didn't win, where his best statistical season as a pro was a season that he didn't win MVP. But Nathan MacKinnon specifically has continued to kind of elevate and pace that bar for himself, and it has coincided, I believe, with a rise and a higher potential for success for the Colorado Avalanche. When you're looking at Nathan MacKinnon as a player and what he has meant to this organization, how pivotal he has been in helping the Avs hoist their third Stanley Cup in team history, is Nathan MacKinnon, who now is in sole possession and will continue to climb, of the most goals scored in team history, given the fact that many significant Hall of Fame players have played for the Burgundy and Blue. Is Nathan MacKinnon reaching or already at a point where you can look at him and say, that's the best player that's ever worn a Colorado Avalanche sweater?
Yeah. Nathan MacKinnon will be the best player to be number 2 in Avalanche history. Come on, man. You know it's Joe Sakic. You know it's Joe Sakic. He has the most goals in franchise history going back to the Quebec Nordiques. And so I do believe Nathan MacKinnon can hit that number. Joe Sakic's around 600. I don't know the exact number, but I know he's over 600 goals in his career with both the Nordiques and also with the Avalanche. But what's stopping Nathan MacKinnon from hitting that number? I mean, he had 50 goals a year ago. I mean, he's a guy who's been just dominant by the way that he plays. But what's the thing that Joe Sakic also had that Nathan MacKinnon has right now too, is you had talent all over the place.
Yeah.
This team is talent rich. And it's the same thing that Joe Sakic had for the majority of his career with the Nordiques and also with the Avalanche. If the team continues to play the way that they are right now, I see no reason why Nathan MacKinnon cannot be able to hit that number throughout his career. Kel McCarr isn't going anywhere. You have Brock Nelson signed for a while as well. You got Martin Natchez and other guys who are also signed too. So you're going to have the talent on the roster. But at the end of the day, what really matters is this. Yeah, you're going to have the numbers. Yeah, you're going to have the goals and the stats. All that matters is the rings and Stanley Cups. And I believe that this season, the Colorado Avalanche can be able to win the Stanley Cup if they could beat one team, and that's the Dallas Stars. Believe it or not, the Avs have lost only 2 games all season, and they are only 4 points better than the Dallas Stars. It is ridiculous to look
crazy.
at. I mean,
and within the Western Conference, they're in the Central Division together. And then you look at the Minnesota Wild, who just beat the Dallas Stars as a sneaky, deceptively good team that's in 3rd place in the Central Division. You have 3 teams in the Central Division that are pacing the entire Western Conference to a certain degree. And that doesn't even factor in the Edmonton Oilers with McDavid and Draisaitl, who we think will eventually kind of figure things out as they get closer to the postseason. Winnipeg with Connor Hellebuck. You factor in to be a postseason potential threat come playoff time. The fact that the Colorado Avalanche and the Denver Nuggets are off to 2 of the more significant, if not the best starts in the entire history of their franchise in one case or team in the other case. And yet they both have these paths in front of them. For the Nuggets, that includes the Oklahoma City Thunder, who may have the best regular season in NBA history this coming year after winning a title last year, and that the Avalanche are going to have to face, at a minimum, one of the Dallas Stars, the Minnesota Wild, etc., but specifically the Dallas Stars before a Western Conference final because of the way things shake out is unfortunate, but that is ultimately the path to a championship that I think both teams are capable of.
Yeah, I think the NHL is really missing out on a chance to have a Detroit Red Wings and Colorado Avalanche type of rivalry, to be very honest with you, if they went back to the normal playoff format that they had before. Because you have both of these teams in the Western Conference Finals, like guaranteed. Like it almost feels like if neither one of these teams, the Dallas Stars or the Avalanche, if they don't win the Cup, then it's been a failure all the way around. I mean, I can't really think of another team, maybe the Washington Capitals, but I really can't think of another team who can beat these two. And they're both going to meet up most likely in the semifinals.
Yeah.
Like, that's when they're going to meet up. Like that's just it's tough to see, but it's the reality. You got to get past round two. Round two has always been the bugaboo for the Colorado Avalanche.
Yep.
When they were able to do so, beating the St. Louis Blues, they won the cup. In the other years, they weren't able to do so. So if they could get past round number two, they will win ring number 4. You can mark that down.
Yeah, traditionally speaking, the adage is if you want to beat the best, you got to beat the best. And that will be what the Colorado Avalanche have to do just to get to the Stanley Cup final, let alone hoist Lord Stanley for a 4th time in franchise history. Justin, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate everything that you've got going on over there at CBS. Again, excited to have you on board. We will look for another time real soon to check in, okay?
Richie, I appreciate you, my brother. Hey, be blessed.
You got it. To the rest of you out there, have a wonderful rest of your Friday afternoon. The weekend is upon us. We watched some dominance on the ice and on the hardwood for the Avs and the Nuggets, and the Broncos have a massive opportunity in front of them. We will be here to chronicle it all for you at Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan. Like and subscribe to our Denver Sports YouTube channel at Denver Sports 104.3 on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Follow us on Facebook and X, where you can catch all of our live programming and everything from our great team at denversports.com. We will be back with you Monday at noon for a reaction Monday to what we hope is a Broncos win. We'll see you then.